If amlodipine is in your pill organizer right now, there are 5 specific things you need to stop and think about immediately. Not 5 dramatic things, not 5 rare emergencies, 5 ordinary things. The kind of things people do every week without hesitation. And at least one of them is something you may already have done in the last few days without realizing it could change how this medication behaves in your body. Because when amlodipine gets prescribed, the conversation is usually very short. You hear what it is for, you hear the dose, you may hear 1 or 2 common side effects, and then the appointment moves on. What usually does not get covered is what happens when amlodipine meets a certain fruit, a pain tablet taken for a bad knee, a few missed days that feel harmless, a hot day with too little water, or swelling in the ankles that leads someone to quietly stop the medication on their own. Each of those sounds unrelated to a blood pressure tablet. That is exactly why they matter. Amlodipine is one of the most widely prescribed medications for high blood pressure in the world. It belongs to a group called calcium channel blockers. Its job is to relax the smooth muscle in the walls of your arteries, so those blood vessels stay more open and the heart does not have to push against as much resistance. It is effective, it is well studied. For many people, it works very well. But like most medications that quietly change how the body functions every single day, it can be disrupted by a handful of very specific substances and decisions that most people never connect to it. My name is Dr. Clara Hoffman. Before we go any further, do not stop, reduce, or change your amlodipine based on this video alone. This is information to help you ask better questions and notice problems earlier, not a reason to make medication changes by yourself. I am going to walk you through 5 things to avoid if you are taking amlodipine, why each one matters, what it can do inside the body, and what to do instead. Stay with me all the way to the 5th one, because the 5th one is the one that quietly triggers more self-made medication trouble than almost any of the others. And I want to tell you about someone I will call Martin. He was 72, a retired school caretaker, practical, organized, proud of the fact that he almost never missed a tablet. Over about 2 weeks, several very ordinary things happened in his routine. None of them looked dangerous at the time, but by the end of that stretch, he had ankle swelling, rising home blood pressure readings, and a level of confusion about what to do next that nearly sent him into a completely avoidable crisis. I will come back to Martin as we go, because his story shows exactly how these 5 things can overlap. So let's start with the first one. Thing number 1, grapefruit and grapefruit juice. This is one of those interactions people hear once, forget, and then assume probably does not matter very much. But with amlodipine, it matters enough that it deserves to be repeated clearly. Amlodipine is processed in the body with the help of enzymes that help break medications down. Grapefruit and grapefruit juice can interfere with that process. When that happens, amlodipine may not be handled the way it normally would be. For some people, that means the effect of the medication becomes stronger than expected. Not stronger in a helpful way, stronger in a side effect way. That can mean more dizziness, more flushing, more headaches, more lightheadedness, and sometimes more swelling in the feet and ankles. The important point here is that it does not take a strange product or an obvious medicine interaction. It can be a breakfast habit. Juice in the fridge, half a grapefruit because someone thinks it is the healthy choice. And because it is food, not a pill, people rarely connect the symptoms that follow back to it. What should you do instead? If you take amlodipine, avoid grapefruit and grapefruit juice unless your own prescriber has told you otherwise. If grapefruit is a regular part of your routine, bring it up specifically with your pharmacist or doctor rather than assuming it is too small a detail to mention. Now, the second thing is where many people unintentionally create their own blood pressure problem. Thing number 2, treating a gap in your tablets like it is no big deal. Not taking amlodipine for a day or 2 because you forgot it, ran out, traveled without it, or decided to pause for now may sound minor. But amlodipine only works while it is being taken consistently. When those doses start getting missed, the protection it provides starts fading. Blood pressure can creep back up, and sometimes it climbs faster than people expect. The danger here is not just missing one tablet. It is the story people tell themselves after that first missed tablet. I already skipped yesterday, so I'll restart Monday. I'm feeling okay, so a few days probably won't matter. I'll wait until the swelling settles, then start again. That casual pause turns a medication schedule into a blood pressure experiment. And blood pressure is one of the worst things to experiment with based on how you feel in the moment, because it can rise significantly without producing a warning symptom until it becomes a headache, chest discomfort, severe dizziness, or a frightening home reading. This is what started happening with Martin. He did not stop because he wanted to rebel against the medication. He stopped because he thought he was being sensible. He had some ankle swelling, he was annoyed by it, and he told himself he would give it a few days and then sort it out later. What should you do instead? If you miss a dose, follow the advice you were given for missed doses and do not double up without checking guidance. If you have missed several days, if you have run out, or if you are thinking of stopping, do not improvise. Contact your doctor or pharmacist and ask what to do next. The goal is not just to take tablets. The goal is to avoid the silent climb in blood pressure that happens when consistency disappears. Thing number 3, regular ibuprofen or naproxen for pain. This is a big one because it lives in medicine cabinets, handbags, glove compartments, and kitchen drawers. People do not think of it as a medication decision. They think of it as something they take because their back hurts, their shoulder hurts, their knee hurts, or they overdid it in the garden. But regular use of anti-inflammatory painkillers like ibuprofen or naproxen can push blood pressure in the wrong direction and can blunt the effect of blood pressure medication. In simple terms, you are trying to lower pressure with one tablet while another tablet is quietly nudging it upward. The problem is not usually one isolated dose after a long walk or a headache. The problem is when it becomes frequent, daily, most days of the week, morning and evening because the joint pain is flaring. That is when people suddenly start wondering why their home readings are not as good as they were a month ago. And because those pain tablets were bought over the counter, many people never mention them. They say, "I have not started any new medicines," while sitting there taking ibuprofen every day for 3 weeks. Martin had done exactly that. His knee had been bothering him. He had started taking an anti-inflammatory most evenings. Not because he thought it was important, because he thought it was ordinary. What should you do instead? If you need pain relief regularly and you are on amlodipine, do not make that a silent routine. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which option makes the most sense for you. In many cases, there may be safer alternatives or a better plan than taking regular anti-inflammatories without review. Thing number 4, dehydration, heat, and standing up too quickly. This is the one almost nobody thinks to connect to amlodipine. Amlodipine widens blood vessels. That is part of how it lowers blood pressure. But when you combine that effect with not drinking enough, hot weather, a hot bath, being unwell, or getting up suddenly from sitting or lying down, the drop in blood pressure can feel much bigger than expected. That is when people describe that strange moment of sudden weakness, the wave of dizziness, the need to grab the wall, the feeling that their head briefly floated away from them. Some people blame age. Some blame not eating enough. Some say, "I just stood up too fast." But if you are taking a medication that relaxes blood vessels, those moments deserve more respect than that. And there is another detail here that matters. Long periods of standing still can make ankle swelling worse in people taking amlodipine, especially later in the day. Blood tends to pool more easily in the lower legs, and that can leave people with puffier ankles and tighter shoes by evening. So now you have 2 issues feeding each other: dizziness when pressure drops too much, and swelling when circulation lingers in the legs. What should you do instead? Drink enough water, especially in hot weather or when you have been more active than usual. Rise more slowly from bed or from a chair. If you have been standing for a long time, move your legs, shift your weight, and do not suddenly rush off as if nothing is happening in your circulation. Small changes like that sound trivial until the day they prevent a fall. Now, before I give you the 5th one, Pay attention to what these first four have in common. None of them sound like medical emergencies. A fruit, a missed refill, a pain tablet, a hot day. That ordinariness is the trap. People reserve caution for dramatic things. Most medication complications begin with ordinary things. If this is already making you rethink how you take amlodipine, then the fifth one is the one you really need to hear. Thing number 5, ignoring ankle swelling or making a private decision about it. Ankle swelling is one of the best known side effects of amlodipine. It can show up gradually. Shoes feel tighter, socks leave deeper marks. The ankles look fuller by evening than they did in the morning. For some people, it is mild. For others, it becomes annoying, visible, and upsetting. Here is the mistake people make. They assume the swelling means the medication is wrong for them, and instead of calling the doctor, they start editing the prescription on their own. They take it every other day. They stop for a week. They restart only when they feel guilty about it. Or they simply say nothing and wait until the next routine appointment. That private decision is where a manageable side effect turns into a much bigger problem. Because ankle swelling from amlodipine is often something that can be managed. The dose may need adjustment. The medication timing may need review. Another blood pressure medication may suit better. Your doctor may want to check whether the swelling really is from amlodipine or whether something else needs attention. But none of those options can happen if the only plan is silence. This is exactly what Martin did. He noticed the swelling. He disliked how his shoes felt. He told no one. Then he started missing tablets. While that was happening, he was also using anti-inflammatory pain relief for his knee and drinking less water because the weather had turned warm and he did not want to be up during the night using the bathroom. None of those decisions sounded dramatic. Together, they were enough to destabilize what had previously been a very steady routine. By the time he checked his blood pressure properly, the numbers were higher than he expected, and he was frightened enough to think something was seriously wrong. What was wrong was not one catastrophe. It was 5 ordinary decisions stacking up quietly. What should you do instead? If you have swelling in the ankles or feet while taking amlodipine, do not decide alone what that means. Contact your doctor's office. Explain when the swelling started, whether it is getting worse, whether it improves overnight, and whether you changed anything about the medication yourself. That one phone call is often the difference between a simple adjustment and weeks of unnecessary confusion. And there is one more point I want to leave you with, because this is the part many people never fully understand. Amlodipine is not a medication that demands fear. It demands consistency and awareness. It works quietly in the background, which means most problems with it also begin quietly in the background. Not with drama, with habits. A grapefruit at breakfast, a refill delayed by a long weekend, ibuprofen every night for a sore knee. Not drinking enough on a hot day, swollen ankles that feel too minor to mention and too annoying to ignore. Those are the 5 things. Not because every one of them will cause harm every time, but because they are exactly the kinds of things that slip past people without triggering caution. So if you are taking amlodipine right now, remember this. Avoid grapefruit. Do not let missed doses turn into a gap in treatment. Do not make regular anti-inflammatory pain tablets an unspoken routine. Be careful with dehydration and sudden standing, and never quietly rewrite your prescription because of ankle swelling without speaking to your doctor. If even one of those applies to you, this is worth acting on this week, not someday. Which of these 5 surprised you most? For many people, it is not the grapefruit. It is the realization that the most common problems do not come from exotic interactions. They come from ordinary life. This is Dr. Clara Hoffman. 5 everyday things, 1 blood pressure medication, and now you know where the real risks usually begin.